behavior. So again, we're in context. You use habitat, you can use behavior. Some birds are very distinct in how they behave. Woodpeckers are one of them. Okay, they climb up and down trees. They're pretty obvious in the way they go up and down trees. Now there's some other birds that do it as well, but they peck on trees really hard, really loudly at times. Okay, use behavior because there's a lot of unique behaviors in the bird world that can help eliminate a lot of other species. Okay, there's only a handful of bird types that can walk up and down trees like woodpeckers, nuthatches, creepers, etc. Okay, so use behavior to help narrow down your results. There's not a lot of birds that can dive under the water like diving ducks, loons, grebes, birds like that. So consider that when you're seeing a bird, consider its behavior. Okay, the way they're feeding, the way they're flying. If they're giving a display, like if you've ever seen the grouse display, they're pretty distinct. Not a lot you can confuse them for. Okay, so consider those behaviors because they're unique and they're helpful. All right, so nuthatches, creepers. They feed slightly differently. Nuthatches can go up and down the tree, whereas brown creepers generally only go up the tree, and they generally go in almost a circular-like pattern around the tree, like spiraling up the tree. Okay, so if a bird is going down the tree, it's almost certainly not going to be a brown creeper. Consider your nuthatches. Okay, if a bird is walking down the tree, consider your nuthatches. All right. Birds that won't sit still very long, just constantly moving every second. Just can't sit still. Warblers. Warblers are high energy, usually insect-eating birds, and chasing insects is not something for the slow. Okay, so if a bird is chasing a lot of insects and it's moving constantly, consider your warblers. And the warblers are brightly colored. Okay, I mean, you can see right here we've got 5 species of warbler, and they're all brilliantly colored. We've got the Audubon's yellow rumped in the top left, Canada warbler in the bottom left, orange crown warbler in the middle, Blackburnian warbler in the top right, and the yellow warbler in the bottom right. So consider behavior, and then you can get into things like field marks. Okay, so as you see a bird, you want to be absorbing all of this as quickly as possible. Okay, birds that soar. You're not going to see a warbler soaring up in the thermals on the wind very often. And if you do, again, let me know because, heck, I would like to see that behavior. It's unusual, okay? Consider the behavior. Soaring birds generally are going to be birds like raptors, some pelagic species, which are open ocean, which if you live out in the open ocean, you must be a pirate or something. I don't know how else you'd live out there, but soaring behavior, generally indicative of the larger raptors. Okay, consider those things. Behavior. All right, so in this silhouette photo, okay, I made this. I basically just took a lot of photos and sketches of birds from flocking around and filled it in with a black paintbrush so that we could use it as a silhouette. Consider a lot of things in this silhouette photo. Okay, there's size, because this is somewhat to scale. There's shape, and guess what? There's context in this photo. All right, in this silhouette image, there is context. Okay, there's all kinds of context. Look at the bird in the marsh. That's habitat. All right, it's a wading bird in the marsh. You can see shape, you can see size, you can see context. You can narrow that bird down pretty quick. Okay, so see how many you can rattle off and throw them in the comments as you see them. I'm not going to go through them all, but feel free to toss some guesses in the comments. Obviously, the one in the top left there on the dead branch, that one should be fairly obvious to most people. Look at that shape, big rotund shape, and got a couple of little horn-looking things. Now they're not actually horns, but horn-looking things, right? That one would be pretty easy for a lot of folks. Great horned owl. Okay. Again, we had our big wading bird down there in the marshy area. That's an egret or a heron. What about that long-tailed bird running by the fence? That long-tailed bird running by the fence. Maybe not even a native species, right? There's some non-natives in this photo. Absolutely. If you didn't know, the ringneck pheasant is not native to North America. Okay, it's an introduced species, introduced for game hunting. But you know, they still live here. You can still see them. Yep, got that long pointed tail running on the ground. Okay, now they can fly. You just don't see it as frequently. All right. We got that scissor tail flycatchers back in this photo. I see someone shouted out the woodpecker. Yep, we got a pileated woodpecker over there on the tree, acting like a woodpecker. Got a big soaring bird up there, some sort of raptor, right? Got a flock of medium-sized birds with long pointy bills sitting on the wire. Big flock of birds. So think of a bird that you can often find in larger flocks, especially in wintertime, like a starling, okay? So there is context in this photo. You know, is it a bird hanging out by itself? Is it a bird in a flock? Because certain birds love to flock, other birds don't like it. So use context. And again, this silhouette image, it doesn't show you a single field mark, but it can give you so much information if you walk through the steps. All right, shape, size, there's no field marks, there's no audio, so then we go into context, okay? Use those clues because they will lead you to bird identification faster than just, oh, I saw a bird, I'm gonna look it up in the field guide. Walk through the steps and use the steps I told you. Again, using like size, breaking your field guide into 3 sections. Large birds are generally at the front, medium birds are in the middle, small birds are at the back, okay? All right, so you see a bird. This is where things get real, okay? You see a bird. You observe it. And I mean observe that bird. Do not look at it for 2 seconds and then put your binoculars down. Look at that bird and absorb it. Osmosis that bird into your skin, into your eyes. I mean, I want that bird to be seared into your eyes. Observe it, okay? You can narrow a bird down to its family by shape and size. And guess what? Most field guides are organized by family or families, okay? So you can generally tell where that bird's going to be based on its size and family, okay? So like the bird to the right, clearly it's got a big old woodpecker bill. It's black and white with some red on the head. If you could tell from that shape that that is a woodpecker, you would go to your woodpeckers immediately and you would be able to identify that bird quickly, okay? Then you get into the field marks. Where is the red? It's on the front of the head. It's on the throat. It's a little bit on the nape, okay? If you saw that bird in the field, obviously it would have a behavior. It might be vocal. You might hear it pecking, okay? Then, if you have a notebook and it's a bird you don't recognize, maybe take some notes or maybe sketch something, especially if you got a bad memory. If you have a camera, use it, okay? The last step, after doing all of those things, should be going to a field guide, okay? Hold on, I've got to get a drink. If you go to your field guide too quickly, you can throw everything off. You could lose sight of the bird, okay? Get as much information about the bird before you go to your field guide. And you'll identify birds so much better if you get as much information as possible. Okay, so seriously, go to your field guide last. Get as much information, take photos, take notes, because our memories can trick us, okay? So that scary human with the mask was right. Don't go to your field guide immediately, okay? And then, if you're gonna go to your field guide, make sure you know how to use it. Read the introduction, all right? It's usually 10 to 15 pages at most, and it's a lot of photos. Read it, okay? Learn how it's organized. Not every field guide is organized taxonomically. Some of them are organized by color. And again, it's not my favorite thing. If you're a beginner, don't learn birds by color. Use the traditional field guides. You're going to be a better bird identification person for it at the end of the day, okay? And then know that if you're using one of these field guides, like the Sibley guide, use the family plates, because the family plates show a lot of birds in a little space, and it helps you quickly identify your bird. And then something you can do is you can take your field guide, all right, and you can put tabs in it to mark families that you see frequently, or mark families, just mark them so you know how to quickly get to them, okay? Make your field guide your own. Use it, mark it, write in it, tab it. Anything you can do to make bird identification easier, do it. And, field notebook. Field notebook is always helpful, especially when you're starting out. Of course, if you have a phone, you have a notes app. You could use eBird to write notes in when you see a bird that you don't recognize. So use the resources that were part of this presentation today, because that's why they're there, right? There's so many resources out there to help you identify birds, because people want you to be excited about birds, wildlife, getting outside, being healthy. Okay? All right. Back to our basics. So we see a bird. Okay? We take in all 3 keys. What can you see? What can you hear? What is your situation? What is your context? Okay? You take those in, take those 3 keys in, you open that door, and there it is, the rainbow stairway to bird heaven. Okay? In this case, it's a sharp-shinned hawk. All right? And one day, if you use these, okay, you can walk up that stairway and identify accipiters on your own. And the accipiters are one of the harder ones for many folks. So use it, okay? Use the steps. Oh, and great observation by Frank. Record sounds. If you hear a sound, guess what? All phones pretty much have a voice recording app, and they generally can record a bird well enough that you can revisit it and compare it with those free apps that I told you about at the beginning. You can ask for help, okay, on one of those social media pages I mentioned at the beginning. You can ask, most states have local state birding pages. There's Audubon chapters, there's bird clubs, and they'll help you. They want to help you. If there is such a thing as a bird person who doesn't want to shout out an identification, I haven't met that bird person. So many bird people they want to share. They want to share knowledge. They want to share information. Okay. So use those resources, which includes people. All right. So now we're gonna apply some knowledge here. We're gonna see this bird. Okay. And I'm gonna play the video, and you're gonna get some sound. You're gonna get some shape and size. You're gonna get some context. Okay. And we're going to identify it together. We're going to walk through it. And even though we're on a 20-second delay, so we're not really going to do it together, we're still doing it together, darn it. Okay? We're going to do this. Here we go. Okay. All right, so we've got a bird. Clearly, most of it is black. When it turned, I saw a little bit of red. I saw a little bit of yellow. Okay. All right. I can see size-wise. It's sitting on a fence post, so it's not thicker than a fence post, which means this is going to be a more medium-sized bird, medium to smaller. Okay. It's black, so maybe that's helpful. It's sitting on a fence post, which means it's likely in an agriculture area, okay, an area that's got maybe it's got some cows grazing, or maybe there's some irrigated lands behind it. We can't see behind it, but the fence post still tells us. You look at that fence post, that is clearly a fence post that's been sitting out in the sun in a wide open space, so we're not around a lot of trees, okay? So we can use all those things. Now, this is a bird that a lot of folks know, okay, but if we stick to our medium to small, we know this bird's going to be from somewhere in the middle of the book to maybe the back of the book. And again, there's always exceptions, okay? But maybe the bird being all black, maybe that's helpful, okay? There are birds called blackbirds, so use that. That's contextual right there, right? All right, it's black, and there are birds called blackbirds. Now, there's also crows and ravens that are black, but this bird also had some other colors. So use all of those things. And then the sound, you could hear it singing. It gave us perfect song. And as Frank observed, you could have recorded it. You could have recorded this thing right now with your phone, recorded that, all right, and gone back and compared it against your Audubon app or your Merlin app or whatever app you use that has bird songs on it, okay? So it's a blackbird. It has red in its wing, all right? This is a common bird throughout North America. It's the red-winged blackbird, okay? So if we would have gone through, all right, we got shape, all right, it's got that long pointed bill, but not woodpecker pointy, right? It's still a little bit more conical than a woodpecker, but not as conical as, say, a finch, all right? Size, again, we use the fence post for reference in this case. We know it's not a massive bird. A crow or a raven would look very large sitting on that fence post, all right? Field marks, we saw red and yellow in the wing. The bird overall is black, okay? So we've got some field marks. We heard the sound, okay? And if we go back to our mnemonic device, a description of this might be conkery, okay? So we got that. Let's use some context. You can see it's not green behind it, so this maybe is late winter, early spring. If you wanted a location, we could really put this bird just about anywhere, although that fence post and that brownish background probably puts us somewhere in the western United States, okay? Again, date, we know this is probably not late spring, early summer, because there's not a lot of green behind it, okay? So we can draw a lot of conclusions just from that short little video, okay? And it leads us to, drum roll, red-winged blackbird, okay? And it's, again, from the middle to the back of your book, and blackbirds are one of those unusual birds where they're found closer to the back of your field guide, okay? And they actually just got rearranged, so you go to blackbirds, okay? And blackbirds and crows and ravens, they're not the same, okay? Crows and ravens are corvids, and blackbirds are icterids. So they're not even going to be close to each other, even though they share some coloration, okay? So you find your blackbirds in your guide, and now if you had the ability to say, oh, maybe it's a blackbird because it's all black, you could even go to your index and find it from there, okay? And if you marked your field guide where blackbirds, the blackbird family, which includes orioles and meadowlarks, if that was marked, you'd be able to flip there really quickly, okay? So use the tips, use them, okay? All right, so